Minister, thanks for making the time. Appreciate it.
It's good to be here.
Let's start with this word that everyone has seized on today, genocide, that the inquiry felt they felt strongly they needed to use that language. Do you agree with their characterization of what happened here as genocide?
I do agree that the commissioners needed to write what they needed to write based on what they'd heard from the families, and that this was very important to families. I think for a long time we've known that the colonial policies and laws, but particularly sexism, racism, kill people, and so yeah, it's tough. But I think this is what the families need to hear.
Is that something that the Canadian government needs to recognize in some formalized way?
I think it'll be important. The main call for justice was the National Action Plan, and I think as we develop the plan, then we'll have to see what our partners want us to do.
And so what comes out of that and how you address that term will be part of that discussion. Can we talk about that discussion a little bit? Because this inquiry, I mean, frankly, I'm somewhat surprised we're here today. It got off to a very rocky start, and there were lots of sort of bumps along the way, but they managed to come up with this extensive report. Now you have to come up with a national action plan with all the same kinds of players, with all the same jurisdictions, except now the provinces have lots of different governments that maybe don't think this is as much a priority as you do. How are you going to do that? And what lessons have you learned from how you got the inquiry started?
So, I mean, you're absolutely right. And for this to be the first national public inquiry with all the provinces and territories on side, agreeing to the terms of reference, agreeing to allowing the commission into their jurisdictions, that was a significant breakthrough. Now we have to work with all the partners to actually do exactly what the terms of reference said: concrete action to stop this tragedy.
There were some very, there's so many recommendations, but there were some concrete ones around the criminal code, and I just want to point to two of them. That violence against Indigenous women would be considered an aggravating factor at sentencing, and secondly, that if there's a pattern of abuse in previous relationships, that the crime would be more serious as well, first-degree murder. How important is it to recharacterize, requalify violence against Indigenous women as a deterrent?
Yeah, I think we have to look at all of the the calls for justice, but also I think that we know with the issue of abuse and where child abuse leads to drugs and alcohol, anger, shame, suicide, violence, incarceration, that there is a continuum where a lot of people want people to get help. So as we heard throughout the pre-inquiry, hurt people, and that a lot of people also want us to really look at the causes.
But as you read through it, it is overwhelming a little bit to read, and overwhelming to think of how to solve it. Do you now, after all of this, where do you think we are at as a country on this issue?
I think we need to redouble our efforts to have the 95% of Canadians not from an Indigenous background on side. I think that blaming and shaming has been really detrimental to the progress we need to make, and that people need to read the report. They need to understand these dark chapters in our history.
So let me circle back to the first question then about genocide. Do you think that the use of that word was maybe in part to shock people a little bit? Not that it's not something that they truly believe and that they heard from families, but maybe it was to wake people up in some way.
Yeah, I don't know if that was in the intent. But I do know that certainly there today, it was very important to a lot of the people who were there. That they feel that, and they want people to understand how they felt, that their lives were less valuable. And I think, to me, we can't let these families down. We can't let them down again. and we need to be able to move forward.
Okay. Minister, thank you. Appreciate it.